Let's listen to Pavarotti.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. As a disclaimer, this channel is for entertainment purposes, and these are my opinions. I'm not here to slander anyone. I will provide information. I'll give my opinion on the information I provide. My opinion is mine and mine alone. I do want to send a special shout out to a couple of channels. One is Crimelam, who put this information together, or at least put a clip together that I had seen, and I went, my goodness, what a good job putting two things together. And also, I'm going to be using some of the body cam footage from Truth and Transparency's channel. So thank you for getting that body cam footage. But there's something about this case that I think a lot of people out there have a difficult time actually grasping. And I'm talking about even the people who firmly believe that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. And that's the fact that if Bryan Kohberger is in fact innocent, and we do in fact believe he is, that means that the atrocity on King Road was a successful operation. It means they got away with it. Now, when you let that really sink in for a minute, to get away with something like this is no easy feat. And it is my assertion that you would need experienced criminals to pull something like this off and actually get away with it. I don't believe inexperienced college kids could do it, and for a couple of reasons. And I'm going to get into it in this episode. So, how could they pull off such a successful operation? There's been many questions in our minds, in my mind in the beginning, about this particular aspect of the case. Because if it's not an inside job, meaning people they were close to, which I don't believe it was, then that leaves a lot of unanswered questions. And if we were to take the law enforcement assertion that this was a college student that was a serial unaliver going into a house with people he had absolutely no connection to, which means this would be a totally random event for him, the odds of pulling it off would be tremendously not in his favor. And you can say, well, they arrested him, so he didn't pull it off. But I mean, even if it was, it isn't. But even if it was Bryan Kohberger, when did they arrest him? Almost 2 months later. And what evidence do they have against him? Practically none. That should tell you something right there. So I'm going to show you something in this video that is going to probably freak you out the way it freaked me out when I seen it. But let's get into it. Let's talk. I'm going to pose a few questions to you, and then let's think about how is it possible to even answer these questions. And then I'm going to show you how it's possible. You know, the first question I always had on my mind is if these perpetrators weren't familiar with the property, and let's just say from law enforcement perspective, it was the college student who was randomly going to unalive people like Ted Bundy. When you pull up to the house, it's got vehicles in front. It's a huge house. It could have 50 people in there as far as he knew. So what in the world would make somebody go into a house by yourself armed with a knife where there could be 50 people in the house and, you would be in trouble? So how could the perpetrators have possibly known who was even in the house? And if they had specific targets, how would they even know if they were in the house? And then, of course, it's how would the perpetrators know that there wasn't other students there partying? I mean, they're certainly not going to bust up in a house where there's 50 kids in there partying all night, and anybody that would have paid any attention to this house would know this was a party house and there was often other people in the house. So not only would they not know if their targets were in the house, how would they not know that there was other random people in the house? Then there's the question of how would the perpetrators know when the residents went to sleep? I mean, the last thing that they would want to do is bust up into a house like this with a lot of people in it and everybody still be awake. I mean, they would literally be running into a possible battle. So how would they possibly know this if they don't have an inside source? And then there's how would the perpetrators know that the door would be unlocked? I mean, if they don't have somebody on the inside working with them, how would they possibly know this? And if it was locked, would they have just turned around and left? Or what would they have done? These are some of the questions, that I had in my mind for a long time. And I know the easy answer to these questions would be, well, it's Dylan. She must be the inside source. She could have called them, let them know, texted them, let them unlock the back door for them. And I thought that for a long time too. And I studied and investigated, but I came to the conclusion that law enforcement did forensic downloads of both DM and BF's phones. So if she had tipped off the perpetrators, they would know it because they had the forensic downloads of their phones. So it tells me it wasn't them. So would the perpetrators, when they got to the house that the doors were locked, would they have just left? I think that question right there tells us a lot because we don't know that the door wasn't locked. It says that there was no forced entry into the home. Folks, forced entry means you bust in. It doesn't mean that the locks were not picked by individuals that have experience doing that. And the perpetrators that I'm suggesting that committed this atrocity, you must understand, they would not only be experienced in unaliving people, they would more than likely be experienced in things like burglary. I mean, these are real criminals. This wouldn't have been their first rodeo. A locked door certainly wouldn't have slowed them down. But how can we answer all of these questions? Well, I think there is one simple answer to all of the questions. And it's also the simple answer to why is Brian Kohberger sitting in a jail cell? Because they had a lookout stationed in a particular place for hours before the atrocity happened. And that lookout would see when everybody got home. He would know if all the targets were there. He would see if anybody else came home with them. He would know exactly who was in the house. He would be able to determine based on lights going out when they were all in their rooms so that he could cue the perpetrators that it was time to go. And he could do that without a cell phone. He could do it with a simple hand gesture. And I think I located the perfect place for him to be positioned for all of that to take place. And let me show you that spot. And that perfect spot would be right here in between these Linda Lane apartments. I'm thinking right at the top of the stairs that goes up between these bushes right here. And somebody could perch right there for as long as they needed to and see everything they needed to see. And then when everything was done, they just simply walk back through those apartments and hop in their car and drive off, as we seen somebody do at 4:23 a.m. But let me show you how easy it would be for somebody to perch right there and see everything they needed to see. So what we have here is what it looks like in between those Queen Road apartments. If you were to take a little stroll and walk between them at nighttime. Now, weirdly enough, this is not the night of the atrocity, but you can get a pretty good idea of what it would have looked like the night of the atrocity. And yeah, that would be exactly the spot I would expect to see somebody like Mr. TF positioned the night of the atrocity, and he could just squat down there like you seen that guy do for several hours. See everybody that came home. See that nobody else came with them. Know when their lights started to go out and it looked like the time to strike. And as the other assailants walk up, he simply gives them a hand signal. As that first vehicle makes its third pass, he simply gives them a hand signal. They get out. They head into the King Road residence. And a locked door certainly wasn't going to slow these guys down. Now, that was that Crimelam that found that video, and that police body cam footage was from one of Truth and Transparency's body cam videos. Freaking amazing. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Till next time, Pavarotti's out.